Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week of tutoring. This is Keno with STEMwithKeno.com, tutoring Amazonian. So, as I've posted in the EWR4 fulfillment, I forget what the, hold on, I'll tell you in a sec what it is. Yeah, fulfillment center, EWR4, I did post. If you have problems with math, science, or if you're preparing for a test, and namely math and science topics, then I'm here every week, answer questions. So, let's see here. I'm still working on the ceiling, and I have my monitors kind of like moved around, but that's all right. The show must go on. All right. Give me a sec here. Okay. All right. If you have a problem, you can take a picture with your smartphone and you can, still a little camera adjustment there. You can, send it to the email, post it on in the message box line. Okay, so that is the email, KIENOTHOMAS@gmail.com. You can send the photos of the problems that you are having issues with. And I got a couple emails already. And these are from people that are at work and they want to catch the recording later. And that's good. If you are in the room, just, tell me where you're from. Hey, Avery, how you doing? Give me a second here. Again, I have my monitors kind of swapped. All right, opening up the email. Okay, here we go. So, seems like people are having issues with like exponents. I guess it gets just want to drop in. All right, thank you, Viper. I appreciate that. Yeah, it seems like people are continuously having problems with exponents, and exponents are really not that bad. This one is just a particular question. And as soon as it loads, all right, they posted 2 problems, and I will demonstrate or show you how to execute the problems, because with exponents there are rules with exponents. So we have a power of a power rule, and then we have a situation where we just we just add. All right, so let's jump in. All right, so the first question goes like this. It is 2x squared times 5x to the 5th power. All right, 2x squared times 5x to the 5th power. And basically, what we do with that is we're just going to add the exponents. You're going to add this. The 5 and the 2 are going to be multiplied together, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add the exponents. So this would be 10x to the 7th. All right, so that would be the final answer. All right, the second condition we have that they sent is the power of a power rule. In that case, what we have is, let's say, like negative 4a cubed, and then we put an exponent on the outside. Now this is what we call a power of a power rule. Now basically the negative 4 and the negative 4 is going to be squared. The negative 4 is going to be squared. So that's negative 4 times negative 4, which will give us positive 16. And then the a will be, the cubed will be multiplied by 6. So we will have 16 and then a to the 6th power. So in this question, they're just pretty much added. This will be 10x to the 7th. And then this square deals with each term. It deals with the 4 and it deals with the a to the 3rd power. So the negative 4 is going to be squared, and the 3, if you would, is just going to be multiplied by 6. So 16 a to the 6th power. All right. Hey Maria, how you doing? Avery in house, Viper checked in. That's good. Uh-oh. My problem child. Hey Avery, I have a question. Go ahead, Avery. Shoot it on over. I gotta strap my boots up messing with Avery, man. She throws questions out there like, whoa. All right. That's just the power of a power rule. Okay, this is what we call a power of a power. So here's a power, and there's a power. So they're just multiplied. You got to understand that this parentheses is a container. All right, it's a container. And what it's telling, in the first rule of the order of operations, if you remember, you could remember, okay. All right. You could remember not to cross your wires, number 1. Number 2, it's a container. And so I feel like Bruce Lee over here, 5 fingers of death. Okay, we got it, folks. Yeah, so basically, the parentheses is a container. The order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. All right. And that is the memory aid. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So P stands for parentheses. E is exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. So in order to get rid of the parentheses, we got to deal with this square. So we deal with the parentheses and the exponents simultaneously. The -4 is squared, and the A is multiplied. The 2 and the 3 are multiplied. So basically, in essence, what it does is it doesn't make it A. It doesn't deal with the A being squared. It just deals with the exponent. So the 2 is multiplied by the 3, and we get a to the 6. And Avery, type clear if that's clear. Okay. Again. Now, let's deal with another question. First off, what I'm going to do is I need to reboot, and I'm rebooting now, but it won't affect the camera or the live stream while we're doing that. A couple things I want to mention. Number one, I was talking about this with a client today. You know, when you call and you need my help and everything, I'm more than happy to help anybody. But the thing is timing. I had someone call me this past week, and it's like they had like 3 days to take a very, very what I call a high stakes test. A high stakes test is a test in which your livelihood could be affected in a positive way if you do very, very well on the test. And so, it's like when you got age limit, when you have age limitations, you may have transportation, or I won't even say transportation, but you need to relocate for work or whatever, and you have to take this test. 3 days is not going to cut it. A week's not going to cut it. And in most cases, a month is not going to cut it. I mean, I probably met maybe 1 or 2 people that were like kind of like there. Shout out to Kimberly. Was it Kimberly? I think it was Kimberly. She was a ROTC student, but she was like a mechanical engineer. Had dealt with physics. I mean, taking physics 1 and 2, algebra, pre-calculus. I mean, there was pretty much virtually almost nothing I could throw at her that she did not have, operational knowledge about. So, like, unless you have that type of background, prepping for the ASTBE or the OAR is really going to be, I don't want to say a struggle, but it's going to take some work, and that's my point. So, when you call me like, hey, look, man, I got to take an ASTB in like a week. A month is really not enough time because there's a lot of topics that I need to weed out. I kind of liken my process to like remodeling a home. I got to look for the weak spots. I got to look for the bad wiring, the bad plumbing, and then I have to refurbish it. And so you may not have certain test taking skills and things of that nature. And it's just bad. And I don't like sending anybody for definitely not a high stakes test, let alone any test. Any test, let alone high stakes test. I said that backwards, but you know, like, you're gonna have to make time. You're gonna have time, you know. And you know, this guy wanted me to like do it in like 1 week. I was like, wow. So, you know, I tried to help him out with a session, just kind of show him what he could expect on that test, and you know, that's really about it. So, some of these high stake tests have a limit. Like your SIFT, you can only take twice, or AFOQT, you can only take twice your whole lifetime. The STBE or the OAR, you have 3 attempts at it, and you know, it could be you know, it's a lot of stress anyway to begin with. So, I mean, there's no use of adding more stress to the stress that's already involved with preparing for these tests. Like I said, I am rebooting my computer because it just moves faster when I do that. And as soon as we get back and we get her back up, then I saw some other questions in my email that I'm going to address. In the meantime, you guys can type in questions if you are, if you feel so inclined to do so. But that's what we're here for, folks. For the Amazonians, peak is coming up soon. So that'll be here in like literally like a month, like a little bit after Thanksgiving. Could not connect. I'll read that in a minute, because my computer is not only I not only use that to track the emails that come in, but also it gives me like a bigger or more definite screen to monitor the conversations and stuff that are typed. So just give me a moment. Not sure who. Let's see. What does this do? Messing with stuff. A resolution was passed. By ratio 5. Okay. All right. Let's get this show on the road. Okay, I'm opening the messenger back up, or the little message board back up. Give me a moment, and we will jump in. So yeah, exponents, they're really not that bad. Practice makes perfect. Here we go. You know what? I think I will put you on this screen. Expand you. And then we'll wait a little bit. Yeah, so you know, work for Amazon dependents. If you're having trouble with math and science problems, bring them here to me. I will explain them. There's no reason why you should be failing. If you, and it's good to come to this little live stream just to kind of just stay on top of things. Even if you are in a course, you know, ask more and more questions about that course, because the reason why is because a lot of times their grades slip right like in an instance. Like, you know, the teacher will hit a concept and then you're totally like, oh my God, you know, and so you kind of sit there and you procrastinate. Oh, you know what? I can handle this. I can handle this. And then the next thing you know, you bomb on a test, you bomb on a couple quizzes, and then the next thing you know, your grade point average for that course is like going through the toilet. So, if you're really not that great at math, you should always just stay tuned. even if it's just watching me solve other people's questions. You always want to stay ahead of the game because it's so easy to slip. Let's see here. All right, you're going there and you're going there. All right. Almost there, folks. So even if you're taking algebra, and you might have problems with factoring, multi-step equations, exponents, square roots, foiling, the coordinate system, linear equations. I mean, there are a lot of issues that people have with math, and okay. And YouTube is dragging, man. Okay, I think Avery had a question, and we're going to jump into that. And also, if you guys that are having issues with the exponents, there's actually an autoplay. If you're on this page, you can see Math with Keno and exponents, and that is a really good tutorial dealing with all phases of exponents. All right. A resolution was passed by a ratio of 5 to 4. Okay. All right. Thanks. Oh, that was actually, it was Maria. All right. Okay. So, a resolution was passed by ratio of 5 to 4. If 90 people voted for the resolution, how many voted against it? Okay, so we're looking at the ratio for and against. All right, so we have to look at the ratio. The ratio is kind of like a fraction, if you would. All right, so we would have. All right, great. We would have a 5 to 4 ratio. So this would be 4, and this would be against. And if 90 voted for, then they want to know how many voted against. All right. So if 90 people voted for the resolution, that means for every 5 people, 4 would vote against. So we have to look at the relationship of the numbers. All right. Now, you could do this with cross multiplication and division. 5 over 4. But whatever you do, you have to keep the numbers lined up, because 90 is going to represent the 5 part of the ratio. So what part represents 4? What you're going to do. And Maria, what are the answers? So this is multiple choice. And Tough Gang, thanks for joining. Where are you from, Tough Gang? And I realize there is a delay, so we will. Okay. 40, 50, 90, 66, and 72. So what I would do is, and let me just check myself here, because the trolls will come and get me if I don't do this right, which I will. Okay, so what we do is we multiply 4 times 90. Now, what I would do in my head, 9 times 4 is 36, and then add a 0. So the answer is 360. And then what we'll do is we will divide 360 by 5. So we have 360 and 5, 7, 35, 1, 0, 2, 10 minus 10 is 0. So 72 goes there, Maria. Good. Avery was all over that. She is not playing. Okay. So, to recap, first thing we need to look at is in a resolution, the ratio was 4 against was 5 to 4. So we look at this ratio, and if 90 people voted for, how many against? So we have to look at this. Another thing we could have done is we could have probably, we could have multiplied 90 by 0.8. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Okay. If this is 5, then this represents 80%. So if we multiplied this number by 0.8, we would have come up with 72 as well. But you probably have to have a little better understanding of numbers. So the more simpler way is to just set up your ratio like a fraction, 5 over 4, and make an equivalent fraction. Place a 90 in the numerator position, cross multiplying. 90 times 4 is 360 divided by 5 equals 72. And that's how you come up with that. Okay, so moving right along here. We got a message from someone in Miami. Okay, it looks like they're an aviation flight technology student, and this is a question about aerodynamics. And to jump right in, let's see here. Their question is, what causes a stall? Okay, I'll just go into a little bit of background. A lot of times when we hear about, issues with airplanes or airplane mishaps, they'll say, oh, the plane stalled. And they think it probably has something to do with the engines. And for the most part, it does not. It deals with the lift that the wings of an airplane produce. And what happens in a stall, we do something called exceeding the critical angle of attack. And so let me give you an example of what I would call a happy wing. I'll show you a happy wing. All right. This is a wing or an airfoil. And a happy wing will have air flow over the top and the bottom of the wing. All right. This is called laminar airflow. So the air molecules it's kind of like they're almost sticking to the wing, kind of like a card that's laminated. Now what happens is when you take your plane and you pull your nose up, up, you're increasing your angle of attack. And your angle of attack is the angle between the relative wind and what we call a chord line. A chord line is just basically an imaginary line from what we call the leading edge to the trailing edge. So let's give ourselves a situation where we pull the nose up and we start to exceed the critical angle of attack. So what happens when we increase our angle of attack? We're in a climb, so the plane is like this, so to speak. All right. And it's still good. We still have laminar airflow. This is good. I'll just draw a couple lines. But when we start to, and think about this laminar airflow happy wing, when we start to pull the nose up even higher, then we get something called airflow separation. So the air starts to like separate from the wing, as you can see at the trailing edge. Okay, if we keep increasing this angle of attack, what we call pitching the nose up higher, then we'll get more airflow separation. And the wings need laminar airflow to produce a good amount of lift. Because when this manufacturer builds this wing is designed with the weight of the aircraft in mind. So the angle of attack is the angle between the relative wind or the air molecules that are approaching the wing and the chord line. So this would be the angle formed, if you would. Let's call it, I don't know, this angle will be 25 degrees. But then if we pitched up more to about maybe like 30 degrees, then we would get a lot of airflow separation, and then the wings would actually stop producing lift. That is what causes a stall, exceeding the critical angle of attack. All right, and shout out to you guys down in Miami. I know with the storm and all that and everything, I hope you guys are recovering pretty well. To everybody, I mean, Puerto Rico, all those islands down there, man, they got hit pretty hard. My cousin was actually in Puerto Rico, and he got out like hours before the storm hit. He was vacationing. Shout out to Charles, Mr. Charles. He showed up last week. Okay, next question. About halfway through. I'll wait for the live people. If I don't get anything from the live people, then okay, see nothing from the group. All right, going to the next. Okay, just fire away, Maria. But in the meantime, what I will do is, I will ask another question. And this is from our military aptitude test prep people. They're asking, is the book that they're using, the Barron's is a good prep book for all of them. Actually, the Barron's book puts out the military flight aptitude test. I have it somewhere in my little library here, but here's the thing. It is not going to totally prepare you. There are sections. I don't think that the mechanical part is strong enough to what people actually see on the test. And then there is a UAV section that is totally, that they don't even address on the, that they don't even address on the test in the book that you will see in the test. And that's why it's good to have a qualified tutor that has prepared people for these exams, because that is the worst thing in the world, to think you're prepared for a test and then boom, what's this new information? And then, boom, and you only have 3 times to take it in your life. And from my experience, it gets harder, the second and third time. So I would rather just find a qualified tutor, pat myself on the back, and just do it right the first time. And again, like I mentioned before early in the video, this proper preparation, unless you're like a mechanical engineering student, electrical engineering student, have been required to take physics as a part of your curriculum, and a higher level math, you're probably not going to be ready. And a lot of you have just, I'm gonna keep it real, you've just passed math to get through. I get it. Like, man, I'm just trying to pass this class. A lot of you are not in a math major, so it's like you are forced to take certain math requirements by your school. You at least got to do this math, and you probably shoot for the lowest level of math. And then now you're preparing for this test, which is kind of like the upper echelon of math subjects, or that's the subjects that it touches on, some of the higher, the higher areas of math. And then, boom, you're not prepared. So you definitely want to have a qualified tutor. I have videos of my people passing and stuff like that. And not just with passing scores, but with competitive scores. So definitely do your research on your tutor. Another thing to keep in mind is, as far as pricing, some of these guys doing these type of, they bill you for $60 an hour, $50, $60 an hour. I met a girl, she passed her ASVAB, and she was actually paying a tutor $50 an hour. To me, I think that's insane. But, hey. And a lot of times, and she was like, and he was charging me $50 an hour, and he wasn't even that very good at explaining to me. And that is a problem because just, there's a saying, if the student hasn't learned and the teacher hasn't taught, and, you have to come down. I was talking to a client about this. You have to come down to the level of your listener. If I was to tell you something like, I don't know, this tank has room for 30 gallons of fluid, fuel, or whatever, and the check valve was broken when I was trying to fill this tank, and now it needs to be repaired and stuff. I'm actually speaking in lingo that probably most of you don't even understand about tanks or atmospheric tanks, filling these tanks and venting and things of that nature. So I would have to explain to you the details, the basic details about a certain situation or a system before I can go into the more intricate details. That was like a poor example. Better example, if I had a PhD in education and I taught kindergarten, could I teach these students on a PhD level? No. You got to come down to your listener. The poor little kindergartners would not understand what you were saying. So you have to come down to the level of your listeners. Questions. Maria, where you at with that question? So I'll go to the email again. For people that show up, for the live stream, I'm here. Don't be shy. That's why I'm here. Want to do something interesting, something that I have not done recently or before even. But I am happy about the emails. All right, let's do something interesting. Okay, here is a physics problem. What they are asking for is the formula for kinetic energy. All right. The formula for kinetic energy is 1/2 mass times velocity squared. 1/2 mv squared. All right. The mass is in kilograms. The velocity is in meters per second. Yeah. So kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is a part of total energy. Kinetic energy plus potential energy equals total energy. And we would describe it as E for energy and then KE for kinetic. Potential energy would be PE. But kinetic energy is 1/2 mass, which is in kilograms, times velocity squared. And potential energy is mass times gravitational pull times height. The mass is in kilograms, gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared, and height is in meters. But both of these answers work out in units that we call joules. All right, which is a unit of work. All right. The average weight of the girls, okay, new one on the board. The average weight of girls of Jane's age and height is 105 pounds. If Jane weighs 110% of the average Jane's weight in pounds. So if the average weight, this is a pretty cool question. All right, if the average weight of girls of Jane's age and height is 105 pounds, then what is Jane's weight? There's a couple ways we could tackle this question. All right, so the average weight is 105 pounds, and we want to know if Jane's weight, she's 110% of the average, then what is her weight in pounds? Our answers are 110, 112, 112.5, 115.5, 118.5, and 126. So basically, our weight is 105 pounds. LBS. Now, there's two ways I can do this. All right. I can either take the 105 and I can multiply that by 1.10. That represents 110%. All right. Or I could do this. I just lost my train of thought. But so we'll stick with this. So we multiply 105 times 1.10. And I'd like you to do that math for me, Maria, to come up with the answer, and please post it. Oh, yeah, the other way. If I want to know 10% of any number, all I'll do is just move the decimal place over 1 point. So there's the decimal movement method. I can multiply by 1.10, or I can move the decimal over one digit, and then, or one space, I should say, and then add 10.5 to 105. That's probably the easiest way. 10.5. Now, check this out. Without even doing the math, I could boil my answers down to B, C, or D. Bravo, Charlie, or Delta, because all of them have a 0.5 in the end. All right, but this 5 is going to drop down. 5.5 will be the last two digits, and Charlie is the answer. All right, so you could have either multiplied 105 times 1.10, which would result in a 10% increase, or take the 105, move the decimal over one space, and then add that to the 105, and that will be 110%, or a 10% increase, because 105 will be the 100%, and the 10.5 will be the 10% increase, thus giving you 110%. All right. Okay. Almost forgot about my second method. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. There is no, official way. You got to kind of do whatever works for you. If you're algebraically adept, then you would probably use the 105 times 1.10. For time, like in a standardized test or something like that, I probably would use this for speed. Move the decimal over 1, that's 10%, add that to 105, and we're done. And 5.5, 0 plus 5 is 5, and 5 plus 0 is 5. So my last two digits are going to be 5.5. The only answer that had 5.5 was C, so we could stop right there, because the answers were 110, 112.5, 115.5, 118.5, and 126. So Charlie, or C, is the answer to the question. All right. All right, folks. Come on, bring these questions on. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, I'll wait a couple seconds because I know that there is a time delay. And for my next hour, we're going to be doing the military test prep and the Military and Federal Aviation Administration test prep for the 9 to 10 o'clock hour. And then anybody that is my client that wants to wants to come into the Google Hangout from 10 to 11, will come hang out with us. If you are not a client, you can buy an online lecture ticket at stemwithkeno.com. It's in the payment options section. All right. Okay. Trying to look for another question that is kind of, and because I want to give you guys a broad range of the types of questions that we deal with. Okay. Oh, great. This is a CDL question. Very good. Okay, this is about... Okay, he wants me to talk about cargo and let's see. Oh, I'm looking at this. I'm assuming you're talking about a box trailer. I'm familiar with cargo loading specs for your trailers as well as your tankers. All right. And basically, you want, if this is the trailer and this is the tractor, don't laugh at my artwork, guys. Actually, I think that's pretty good. So 18-wheeler, okay. So when we're loading this, we want the weight, we want more weight centrally located above the drive tire. So this will represent the cargo in here. So as we load it, we don't want the weight back here, okay? We want most of the weight over the drive tires, because the further we put now, if you have it just uniformly stacked or loaded, this trailer uniformly loaded, then what happens, that's fine. But we don't want space, and then we don't want the load back here, and especially not a heavy load. If it's a light load, a couple pallets, that is okay. But if it's a very, very heavy load, then we want them over the drive tires, okay? The reason why is something called a whiplash effect, or something that we call rearward, meaning like behind you, amplification. It's like cracking the whip. You know, when you start, you may just do a gentle motion with the whip, but by the time that coils and takes that distance, it whips. And so the same concept goes on here. If we look at this trailer from a top view, okay, so you have your tires, your trailer tires here, you have your drive tires under the under the nose of the trailer. Okay, if we load and my physics guys, or my physics people, I shouldn't say physics guys, would know that this is the fulcrum. Okay, This will be the fulcrum, or kind of like a balance point. And the further away from the fulcrum, we're going to get a higher load moment in foot-pounds. So this is why we want it close to the fulcrum for stability. We don't want the weight all the way in the back, because then that's when rearward amplification occurs, and it actually results in a greater foot-pound measurement. For instance, if I had 500 pounds 1 foot away from the fulcrum, so that means that the cargo is stacked, maybe let's make it 3 feet. All right, so I had the cargo stacked back here, then I'm only producing a load moment of 3 feet, and then let's say it's a 500-pound load. So I would be creating 1,500 foot-pounds. If I take this and I put it back 30 feet, then 30 times 500. 5 times 3 is 15, and then add my 3 zeros. This would actually be causing a force of 15,000 foot-pounds. So for trailer stability, and to make sure that the weight of the trailer is not fighting you, you want your load closer to the fulcrum, all right, or the reference point. So we want all our heavy stuff towards the nose of the trailer. If we have smaller things, you know, that's cool. We'll stack that in the back. But primarily, we want our cargo to be up flush over our drive tires for stability. And also, that stability is going to increase in greater weight above the drive tires. And that's always good. We don't want our weight concentrated over the rear. So that's pretty cool. I got a CDL question. All right. All right. Maria, no more questions? Avery, where you at? I know you got something hanging for me. Like, oh, I want to drop this question on him. All right. Yeah, we're getting a mixture of everything tonight, and I appreciate you guys sending emails, even if you could not make it here. I know some of you are, okay, shoot, Maria. I know a lot of you guys are at work, and this is DVRable. Okay, it will be in a video playlist, and so even when you email questions, you can come back to my channel and you can look at it later. Okay, we're waiting on Maria. And if I don't get a question in a couple minutes, I will go to another email question. I'll start looking now. Okay, we'll just go ahead and go to the email. Let me look for something interesting. This is good. I like this. A lot of people have problems with this issue, converting fractions to a decimal, or fractions to a decimal and a decimal to a percent. Okay, so here's the rule of thumb. Every fraction is a mathematics problem. So let's say if I have half of something, I have 50% of something, or 0.5 in decimal form. So how do we come up with that number, or those numbers? Well, 1/2, if we look at 1/2, this is a division problem. This is actually 1 divided by 2. And if we place the 1 here, 2 can't go into 1, so we have to have a decimal and a 0. Now, 2 can definitely go into 10. Now, when we place a decimal here, we have to bring it up in our answer, and 2 times 5 is equal to 10. And then that zeroes out, so the decimal form is 0.5. All right. Now, or some would say 50. Now, to go from decimal to percent, the decimal must move over 2 spaces. So the decimal place is here, and so we bring our decimal over 1, 2, and then we have 50%. Okay. If we were converting from percent to decimal, that we would be at 50, and we have to imagine, where's the decimal in 50%? The number's 50, so the decimal's to the right, and I see your question. And then what we do is we move the decimal over 2 spaces, and then we would come up with 0.50 or just 0.5 because this is an insignificant digit. It's just a 0. We could say 0.5 and mean the same thing. All right, and then if we're going back to the fraction from the decimal point, then what we have to look at is this 5, the significant digit, is in the tenths place. Tenths? Yeah, the tenths place. So since it's in the tenths place, we make a fraction of 5 over 10, and that reduces to 1/2. So this is how we get from fraction to decimal to percent, and from percent to decimal back to the fraction. Yeah, that is a lost art that a lot of people have not used. Okay. 3 workers assemble 360 switches per hour. But 5% of the switches are defective. How many good non-defective switches will these workers assemble in an 8-hour shift? Okay, answer is 2,736. Bravo is 2,880. Charlie is 2,944. And Delta or answer D is 3,000. Okay, so we got 3 workers, and how I recommend you do word problems, you'll hear me talk you guys to death about this, is line by line. Line by line. That's how you handle word problems. You take a line, you process it. You take another line, you process it. And you just keep track of everything. So 3 workers assembled 360 switches per hour. All right, so let's just look at that. 360 switches per hour, right? So in an 8-hour shift, which it asks later, we're just going to multiply by 8. Do I need to deal with that 0? No. 8 times 6 is 48, and 8 times 3 is 24. We add the 4, 28, and then we add our 0. So we can throw out answer B because that is the total amount of switches in an 8-hour shift. So Bravo we could throw away. It's also good art to have the process of elimination to eliminate the bad problems. Okay, 5% of these switches are going to be defective. Avery's like already there. And you know what? Actually, we could stop right there because if this is the total and 5 are defective, and they want to know the number of non-defective switches, C is 2,944 and D is 3,000. So it's got to be lower. So Avery, you probably used that in my rapid test method, but 5%. Let's look at 5%. All right. 5% of the switches are defective. So if I want to know 10% of any number, move the decimal over 1 space. That would give me 10%. Half of 10% is 5%. The number of defective switches is 144. All right, so if we subtract this by 144, which is the 5%, you should get 2736. And you guys could do the math with the calculator. All right. But we didn't even have to go that far. That method is for people when, you're testing and you're trying to score as many points as possible. Avery, that was a very, very good rapid response. Maria, did you get that? The way that I came up with that. I'll recap just in case. You can tell me whether you understand it or not, but I'll go ahead and I'll recap it anyway. And we're at 59 minutes. Okay, so yeah, that'll actually be the last question. All right, I'm going to do the recap and then we'll close. All right, so the question stated that 3 workers assembled 360 switches per hour, but 5% of the switches are defective. How many good, meaning non-defective switches, will these workers assemble in an 8-hour shift? Well, let's look at how many they will totally make in an 8-hour shift, with is 2,880 switches. Now, our answers were 2736, 2880, 2994, and 3000. If B is the runner-up to the lowest one, this is a total number. So if we take out 5%, it's going to be lower than 2,880, and there's only one answer, 2,736. But if you wanted to actually do the math, then I would take this total number, and what I did was I moved the decimal over one space. So 10% is 288. If we divide this by 2, 144 is the 5% answer. So if we subtract 144 from 2,880, we get 2,736 non-defective switches. All right. So again, this is going to close out our Tutoring Amazonians. Again, this is DVRable every Friday, 8 to 9. We're here. If you're in the Amazon's career choice program, and you haven't dealt with math in a long time or science subjects in a long time, anatomy and physiology, for you guys that are in the EMT program or the LPN programs, you are going to have to be very well versed with medical terminology. We cover that. We cover anatomy and physiology. We cover that. Avery, I see your question on the email. That's going to be addressed in the military aptitude and FAA test prep. Thank you for the questions, Maria. Okay. So again, for the Amazonians, if you are failing, if you're failing in classes, if you are having a tough time, if you don't understand certain concepts, you may be taking online courses, you got a free hour to beat me up with questions. If your children are having problems in school, again, they are very tech savvy. So they know how to take a picture with a phone and send it to an email and stuff like that. So, every Friday, 8 to 9, send them. And I thank everybody for sending emails and the people that actually came in and participated. I thank you all. This is Keno Thomas with STEM with Keno.com for tutoring Amazonians, if I can pronounce my words correctly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye. And cut. Boom. Yes, we are done.